What makes Toolpath Labs such a potential game changer for the industry of manufacturing? Well, two things: automated quoting and automated programming. So what makes Toolpath Labs so different when it comes to quoting or developing an estimate? Well, it's not just figuring out what the volume is of your part, it's actually programming it. It's figuring out what tools it needs, how many operations there will be, and it's developing all the operations with the tools to machine your part. And so when it gives you a quote, it's going to be as accurate as those operations are. And so let's get started in quoting or developing an estimate for the part you see right here. There's three ways to move your part into the app at toolpath.com so it can start developing those strategies and your estimate. The first one is going to be inside of Fusion if you have the app installed. That would simply say, I want to send this part to Toolpath Labs to start generating that estimate. And then we'd hit OK, and it would send that to the website. The second thing we can do is we can be at the website and say, I just want to upload a part directly from the website. And that would do exactly the same thing. And the third way that we can get a part to start getting this estimate and programming and all that is just notice I put a step file inside of an email. I'm emailing it to uploads at toolpath.com, and I make sure it's associated with my email address that's associated with my account at Toolpath Labs. Now, let's check out what happens after we upload it. So we can see once it hits their website, you get a nice 3D viewer. You can control some of the things that you see, but this is mainly about developing that estimate and also programming your part. Okay, so a couple of minutes into that generation, we see that it has figured out what tools it wants to use. It found 8 tools out of 614, and then it's figured out our setups. Setup number 1 and setup 2. And now we're just waiting on it to finish up calculating the strategies. Okay, so it finished with the strategies, and let me move myself here. We can see that here's setup number 1, and we got setup number 2 under that. If we click setup 1, we can see all the features that are associated with that. Now let's move into estimate and get an idea of how this works. So we have our material price, our machining price, our setup, and we have a breakdown of all the operations here. Now keep in mind, all of this was developed based on the presets here, this default aluminum preset, and that's something that we can adjust or change. You just click the little pencil for edit, and then you can change your base cost or your material cost if it was a different type of material. $100 per setup, $100 an hour for machining, so $1.66 per minute. And then how long does it take an average tool change? I might have embellished that a little bit, don't tell my customers. But once you update all of that, then let's say your customer says, I need a quote for 25 pieces, right? So here's 25, well, they're going to be $27 a piece. But they wanted a quote for 50, and then they wanted a quote for 100 because, you know, and they're going to just order 25. I don't know why they always ask for that. But, you know, you can get the price down to 19 bucks a piece for this. Not too bad. Gives you a breakdown of how long each operation takes. So if something went wrong, you're going to know pretty quick. Like if it takes 30 minutes to face off the part, well, we want to go tweak that a little bit and take a closer look. But all of these look pretty quick. This is mainly just setup cost and a little bit of runtime. Yes, Toolpath Labs does more than just quote your part or give you a nice estimate. But it does that because it programmed that part. So how do you get that program back into Fusion where you can use it and start making some chips? Well, they got this handy dandy export to Fusion button. When you select this, you get a part access key. Just copy that. And then when you go back into Fusion, you can say, I want to import a program. Highlight that, paste in the new one, and then say, OK. Now, you're going to notice it's going to do something a little different than maybe it used to do last time. See, it's opened up a new document window. That means that it broke the link between your design file and now your manufacturing file. It does make it a little cleaner and it solves some problems from their end, but it does break that continuity. It is not a derived model. It is not an inserted model. its relationship is broken. But keep in mind, it did develop all of the toolpath in just a couple of minutes. So that's pretty good. And so now there's a few things that we can edit here. Notice it didn't bring just the model in. It also brought in all of the operations, right? So that's pretty slick. It also brought in a model called optimized stock. And so if we have it set right here where we can see our new 0 here is on the bottom, whenever you get in, whenever you have AI program any part, consider it like an intern that's given it a good shot and then hands you that program. So the first thing we'd want to do in this situation is probably go back, check out our optimized stock, and then I want to make sure this is something we can buy, and then go plus 0.75. That's a quick way you can do some math there. So now that stock makes a little more sense. Now it's time to go through all of these operations and make sure they make sense. In just a couple of minutes we were able to fix that. The second operation, we definitely want to fix this. We got our finish facing. Probably want to start with that, and we just go ahead and say I want to use multiple depths, right? And now the rest of these operations are going to start making a little more sense when we start off with that facing up. In a couple of minutes, we're able to kind of trim this thing up and get it where it'll run. Now, all the tools, tool 0, oh my goodness, I don't have a pocket for tool 0. So one thing we'd want to do at the end before we can run this part, right-click, remove unused tools, and then we'd want to renumber these tools. And now that program is ready to run, and the tools are all kind of situated where I think they can make that part. But there's a lot going on in the background with tool libraries and also speeds and feeds. So let's take a brief look at how to control some of that. So if you're just cutting aluminum, no big deal. You've got one library that came with Toolpath Labs. But what if I'm cutting titanium? Or what if I'm cutting copper or brass or bronze? Right, I'm going to want different libraries so I can get proper estimates for different materials. And then I'm going to want to run them on different machines. So I really need to have a library that's configured with proper feeds and speeds for each of those material types and machines. Where that starts is right here in your tool library. So for this, you can see I have a Haas VF1 tools in titanium, and I have one configured for aluminum here. And now when you come down and check out some of the tools, notice I need to rename this one here, right? Wall finishing. So each of these in this one tool, I've made a aluminum heavy roughing, aluminum light roughing, aluminum floor finishing, and aluminum wall finishing, right? Each of those have different settings, different feeds, and then when I say accept, now, so if all of these are properly set up, I can right click and say I want to export this library, and I want to make sure he's a JSON file. That's my go-to, and I want to save him on the desktop. Once that's done, now I'm going to go to Toolpath Labs. I'm going to go into the tool library. So now when I go back to Toolpath Labs, I'll go to Tools and say I want to make a new library. It's going to be my aluminum library from a Haas VF1. Once it uploads that, now I want to set up cutting configurations. Here's my cutting configuration, my default one. I want to make a new one. Now when I select my Haas VF1 tools for aluminum, these are the ones I know I have. I can start adding a floor finishing and floor finishing for that, maybe heavy roughing, light roughing. The only call outs I have in here are going to be the ones that are inside of that library. So you can see some of these I've missed, I've skipped over. I've got some carbon steel drilling, so I'd want to go back in there and find out what tools are associated with those and update them to just be in aluminum. I could use wall finishing on a bore or heavy roughing on a surface because I know I want to move a little quicker on 3D surfaces, and then wall finishing particularly here, and then maybe some light roughing for a bore finish. I can get it done. Right, whatever I want to name these, those names come from each tool's preset in the Fusion 360 library. Now, this is just my preferred library. So I want to make sure he's my preferred library. Use the tools I have here in the shop first. Next, maybe I want to have a secondary library and then say this guy's a backup, right? If you can't find the tool you need to make this part here, then look at this backup library, something I'll have to order most likely, something I don't have in hand. Now, once this is done, we want to save this as my Haas VF1 ALU. And you can organize this any way you want, right? These are all of the presets that are available in both of these tool libraries. Now, once that's done, and you say, I want to save that cut configuration, when you go back to your part, select on your part, you can say, I want a new cut configuration. This is going to be machined on my Haas. I select OK. Now he's going to start reprogramming this based on the tools and the presets that you've set up. Hopefully you were able to leave this video with a good idea of what Toolpath Labs is all about. Now there's a couple of things I really like about them and a couple of things that I don't. The first thing I don't like is when I upload a part from within Fusion to be programmed, that it dumps it into another document, breaking the link to your fixtures and breaking the link to your stock and original design file. That's kind of what makes Fusion awesome, is having all of that associated together. So hopefully that's just temporary while they work out some bugs in the background. There's some things I really like developing its own setups. That's fantastic. It saves you a lot of time. I love the quote and how that works. I can go in and make some quick edits, change materials, change cutting configurations, and get good numbers that I can use to send to my customers. And the operations that it makes are pretty easy to edit. Everything's very straightforward. And so that's very helpful because we will need to be editing these programs. In the last 3 months, they've made a lot of improvements, so I'll look forward to see where they'll be in another 3 months or a year. As a shop owner, I know I need to watch carefully. What do you think about Toolpath Labs and where they're at, and what kind of effect this is going to have on the industry? We look forward to hearing your comments below. If you like this video, please share it, maybe subscribe if you want to see more like this. But until then, we'll catch you next time.